character creation examination panel, a Reframe sponsored event. We show up around cons every now and then and have fun.
When they happen.
Yes. So we're happy to be back. We're happy to see everybody, MAGFest.
Hey, come on, eat the mic.
Hello.
You
There
can
you
move
go.
the mic to you.
Probably. So, I guess the little introductions in order. So, meet the panelists. We're all
Hi.
here, happy.
How's it going?
So, we're starting up first, right here, Lodestar. Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Lodestar. I forgot what I wrote on here, so hold on. Okay, I am the living embodiment of Xander P. Wifflebottom. If you get the reference, good for you. Jenna Maroney and Madison Montgomery. If you get those references, you're also cool.
I don't know any of those people.
Well, I wouldn't expect you to. Okay, so I'm an award-winning choreographer across multiple genres of dance and world barriers. All my awards are given me by students on paper plates. I didn't even get the dollar store ones, like on a paper plate with marker, but multiple awards, and yes, I won. Against no one else, by the way. I'm an Ophiuchus, so if you're into astrology, we could fight about that later. I wanted more gifts in this, and Sanjiku over here made the PowerPoint, so I can't complain about the lack of gifts. Okay, so professionally, I have a master's in counselor education that's specialized in K through 12. That's a fancy way to be called a school counselor, everyone, which I also have a license to be a school counselor, woohoo. And I was the first certified geek therapist, which is a real thing, apparently. I found it on a Facebook ad and found out that the American Psychological Association approved it. They just got approved with like play therapists, social workers. If you go to geektherapeutics.com, it has like all that stuff. I'll happily talk about it to anyone after. But yeah, it's a real thing and it's recognized by like all the professionals now, with more growing. And I was the first person to get through the program. Woo! Thank you.
Don't clap for him.
Stop it.
Don't encourage him.
Okay, so other than that, I am a director, producer, editor, and founder of the Shape of a Star podcast, which is a podcast I have, which is really more of just, I realize that people don't realize how cool they are. And I knew a bunch of cool people. So I was like, hey, come on. And I'm going to ask you questions to make you talk about yourself and realize how cool you actually are.
Now,
So
bear in mind that when I told him I would like to be on, he said, yeah, but what would we talk about? So, thanks.
look. So I have random people I know on like, oh, we all know those like rappers that like make mixtapes and just like peddle them on the street, right? My friend is the one that owns the studio that they go to. So I had him on to tell me all about what it's like making people's dreams come true for like a day. And then he'll pump out his own music. I've had authors. I've had the other certified geek therapy people come on and just tons and tons of people. And I'm also the founder of Reframe, which is this paneling group, which oddly gets recognized in the most random places. Because like, has anyone heard of the play Be More Chill? Okay, so it's like a musical. I was at the closing show and I was like, hey guys, Reframe's here, and just took a picture with me and my friends just because we were there. And all of a sudden someone's like, oh my God, you're here. And they found us like standing outside stage dooring. And I was like, holy crap. We're like famous now. Yay. Woo. That's me.
All right, moving on.
Oh, you did go with Sputnik. Okay, my actual name is Nick, so I thought it was clever. All right, what did I put? I got 28 years of experience pretending to be something that I'm not. So I count that as role-playing experience. I've always wanted to be a Ninja Turtle when I grow up, and I'm still hoping it happens.
What color?
Well, you know, Raphael is my favorite, so.
What color?
Lodestar, they're all green. I could play the drums pretty poorly, but I could still do it, and I can keep a beat. I love hockey. That's not that interesting, but if anyone else really likes hockey, yeah, well, Jersey, of course you do. But I'm a Rangers fan, so. And I really don't like him, as you could tell. We have a very, like, a contentious relationship.
For years.
For years. Yeah, my only bona fide or bona fides, whatever, is I have a BS in political science.
Oh.
But I don't use it. So there you go. So
funny how that works.
That's just how it works for like 90% of us. There you go.
We could debate that after too.
All right. So I am Sanjiku. I'm 9-year veteran of your tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons 4e, 5e. I didn't get any of the earlier ones, but oh well. General RPGs, from the time I could understand what was happening with these little squiggly lines on a screen, sure, I'll play it. Leafeon is my spirit animal. It's true, it's a fact. I am usually perpetually 5 minutes behind. They dragged me here on time, so that's great.
We're professional.
And then again, another slightly less eminent individual, bachelor's in anthropology. I don't use that either. Such is life in this day and age.
How many people here use their degrees? Okay, that's about like
hey.
a third of us. Like, okay, good us.
Yeah,
And good for the
congratulations.
rest of you for being alive and
Yeah.
stable and living and having enough fun to come here.
Yeah. All right. And so with that, introductions are out of the way. Let's talk about character creation. So really fast, I do want to say, feel free to speak up. Y'all made it here. That's awesome. Please feel free to talk to us. If you have anything to say about anything that we bring up, go for it. We welcome it. So, character creation. Mostly what we'll be talking about, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, you know, your 6 different dice, you roll them. That's mostly what we'll be talking about, but you can use this for anything. If you ever roleplay MMO characters, I've been really into the Final Fantasy XIV scene lately, so getting into that. You can use anything here for that. If you're writing fan fiction in your spare time, you can use this to make a profile for your characters, making a LARP character, anything like that.
Non-fan fiction writing.
That's true too.
Spicing it up in the bedroom.
Oh,
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, yeah, all of this stuff, it's not just for, you know, rolling your 20-sided die and seeing what happens next. But creating your character. Why does it even matter? I want to include a quick interlude. That is, in fact, a picture of Moses parting the Red Sea with a Beyblade. I just felt that was fantastic. That is Beyblade's canon. So, it might be obvious, but still, without a character, how are you ever going to interact with your world? What are you going to do?
your best.
It's true. My handwriting is terrible. But if you make yourself a well-rounded character, you have no idea where you're going to end up in the world. If you really spend time and put effort into your character, you will get it back out, paid out in dividends. It would be great. So, one of the biggest things that happens in character creation actually comes with your session 0. Except for in limited situations, you're probably not going to be creating your character in an isolation chamber. You're going to be doing it with friends, strangers you met online, strangers you met at MAGFest. Who knows? And it's always important, even if it's like a 3-minute session 0, to sit down and go, I want this to happen. I'm really not interested in this. What do we all think about this? And that's where session 0 comes in.
Quick question. How many of you have ever dabbled in character creation? Cool. That's like 100%. Great. Okay, cool.
Wonderful.
We like to gauge like what we have to go into such details about.
So yeah, session 0, you're talking about your setting. Are you going to be doing fantasy? Are you going to be doing sci-fi? High fantasy or low fantasy? Is your magic going to be something that Joe Schmo on the street just lights up his pipe with a little flame on his finger? Or is it going to be magic is Gandalf? It's kind of weird, kind of esoteric. We don't really, you know, is that magic? Well, yes, but things like that. You have to know that before you go in. Because if you come in with a wizard in a world where there are no wizards, it's going to be a eye turner for sure in the streets. And then going on to your party. Again, what do you actually want to do with this? Are you planning on this grand epic campaign rescuing, you know, the princess from the highest tower? Or are you more interested in the nitty gritty? We're going through the slums and I don't know. What are you going to do in the slums? So is it going to be big and honorable, or are you going to go around stabbing people in the back every day? That's okay, but you need to probably talk about it beforehand, before your party surprises you and you're dragged off to jail.
Traitors.
Here's a good one. Are you going to spend your time actually trying to sway people over in a big display of charisma, or are you just going to get down to it?
Yeah. Guilty. So many times we make a plan when we're playing games and I literally forget the plan, or we get caught. And I'm just like, you know what? We're going to talk our way out of this.
And it works somehow.
I'm just really lucky.
And then the big, boring one, the schedule. How often are you going to play? Are you going to be playing every single day or once every 2 weeks when the stars align? Who knows?
Real quick, one thing about session 0 I wanted to mention. A big thing that's important to know going in, and it's better to establish it in session 0 than in 3 months, is how silly do you want to be? Because I know when I play, I like to play very extravagantly and just have like a crazy time. A lot of other people, they want it to be a little bit more grounded, a little bit more serious, and there's going to be a lot of bad tension if you don't establish that early on, so you don't know what you're getting into. You don't want to be the person who's there trying to do your 15 minutes of stand-up when everyone else is trying to tell the Lord of the Rings. So establish that really early on. Session 0, the best time to do it.
Very good point. Very good point. So the next up, even in character creation, your dungeon master, game master, whatever you prefer to call them, moderator, if I've seen that sometimes, they're the ones who define the world. They set up your rules. They define what your boundaries are going to be. They are a fantastic resource to go to in character creation. They can tell you what you're going to expect from the world. If you're going to be playing in modern day Earth, you're probably not going to find too many elves. It's possible, but you probably want to talk to them about that first before you bring that in. They're the ones who are going to be offering you these big, sweeping, character-specific moments. If your character has a rival from your childhood, they can bring them back in and suddenly, whoa, I've got something to do that's not just, let's steal this bag of gold. And they're the ones who mediate. If the party starts having an interpersonal problem, they can probably, hopefully, get that straightened out before your whole party just dissolves into a cloud of smoke and whoops, goodbye. And then another fun thing to think about, if you are the dungeon master, game master, whatever you may be, don't neglect the fact that the world is a character as well. Your world should be a living, breathing thing. That's what makes it fun. I won't go too much into that. That could be a whole panel of its own. But always keep in mind that the world is a character you can interact with as well as the person sitting next to you at the table.
How many people here actually DM and GM? Oh, okay. Cool.
Fun. All right. So let's look at our party. It's not necessarily something that you always think about, but who you're playing with can decide who your character is going to be as much as, your own personal wants and wishes. This is where you come from, where you get your, we have a party of 4 paladins and not a single one of them actually can heal. You might have a problem. You want to sit down and maybe talk about that beforehand. We're all mages, which is great until you consider that, we might go splat. And then your background. If you have a character who has absolutely no compunctions about, taking care of this person in order to get what they need, but you have someone else who's been raised to the highest standards of honor and nobility, they might have a problem. When you're in the street and character A stabs random Joe Schmo and character B gets really upset.
That kind of tension can actually be a lot of fun as long as it doesn't bleed over into actual sort of being annoyed at the other person. You really gotta like balance that well.
Yeah.
But I really do like it when characters have opposing viewpoints. If everybody's the same, really, what's the point? What story are you telling?
Yeah. It is that whole grand balancing act. How much strife do we want before it's too much for the party to actually withstand? At what point would one character prefer to walk away from the party than stay with the party? Where is that dividing line? And talking about that as players really is a key to keeping a party together. And then the world, this is like the last step we get to before we actually talk about creating your character. And I kind of touched on this. If your world is modern day Earth, you're probably not going to see elves. That's something to talk about with your game master. It can happen, but it probably won't. Deciding who your character is going to be comes in large part from where they came from in their world. And then things like their character's background. Is your character from an area where they're going to have a lot of wealth, or are they going to be in relative poverty? That's going to shape how your character reacts with the world. So just always keep in mind where they come from when you're thinking about who your character is going to be.
And when you're making it, because again, if you pull a Gandalf in modern day, Gandalf's going to stand out.
Very much. Do you want that kind of attention? So.
And if you do, how does your character react to that kind of attention?
Very true. All right. So the real fun part, personalization. There's so many choices. This is where, you really get to decide how you're going to make this game work. So personalization. First things first, right and wrong. There is no right answer or wrong answer when making your character, with the caveat that an elf in modern day Earth is probably going to be a little suspicious. Beyond that, your character can look however they want to look, and it's fine. Your character can act however they want to act, and it's probably fine. You can feel however you want. That is great. There is no real right or wrong.
Just a fun answer.
All right. The Mewtwo theory of character creation. The first things that Mewtwo said to himself in the first Pokemon movie. Who am I? What am I? And not technically, but where am I? Those are honestly three of the most important questions you can ask yourself when making any character for anything. Who, what, and where. So let's get down to it. Who is your character? We all probably know someone who's made a 19-page backstory and shared it in excruciating detail. It's true. And that is fantastic that you have a 19-page backstory. But balancing how much of it you have and when you share it with people is probably one of the biggest balancing acts in the game. So your backstory, unless your character is actually Mewtwo, they probably weren't born in a tube. They came from somewhere. They've experienced things. They have their entire own way of viewing the world. And you really have to think about that for how they're going to interact with the people around them. But at the same time, that balance. If you find yourself writing a 19-page backstory and including things like when he was 5, he got himself a splinter when fixing a wooden railing, it's probably not going to actually have much impact on how your character views the world, unless he particularly hates fences. Fair enough. So you kind of need to balance. Include the big things. Include their brother died in a tragic accident with a horse and jumping over a log. He hates horses. Cool. But you don't have to go super into detail, and you don't have to overshare as well. Sometimes keeping things secret is fantastic. That's how you get intrigue.
One of the big things too, I think this is like my biggest thing, is the most interesting things that happen to your character should happen during the course of the game. You don't want to, you want to have a decent backstory, sure, but you also don't want like the most important thing in your character's life has already happened. It's like, well, great, now where do we go? Or how does your character change over time then? It already had its biggest moment. So you really want to, it's good to have like a, some motivation from your past, but you don't want to be like, and then he defeated the evil goblin at age 7, and then he went on to be, it just, then you have nowhere to go. Then your character's just a static actor in the world. So I would definitely recommend, like, if you find yourself writing 19 pages, like, kill your darlings, right? Like, cut half of that.
Or
you can be Lodestar.
Here we go.
no, okay, so along these lines, sometimes you could just base a character off something people already know. Like currently, I have a character that is what I call Tudor era drama mixed with The Little Mermaid. So my guy's like a Triton and he's a warlock, and the whole like Little Mermaid story, Ursula, who's his aunt, because like original lore and all that crap. So gave him the powers, and he was just like, awesome, I'm gonna bag a prince. Great. Happily ever after prince happens. And Aunt Ursula over there is like, hey, that's amazing. I have less people to kill on the way to the throne now because I got rid of the heir. Cool. Well, what happens a year later? Plague. So everyone in the kingdom blames this like warlock witch guy from the seas to the plague, and now he's on the run. Trying to be, because he was a prince before, so it's like, okay, that's the world he knows. What does he do in a world when he's on the run? This kid's spoiled. He has no like wits about him. He's from the water, but he can't go back to the water because an Ursula's going to get him. So what do? Try and get back to the same stature that a royal person was, which is to become famous. So he is just like on a massive quest to become famous just so he could get luxury back in a world that doesn't know him.
Fantastic. And then one more thing before we move on. Also remember that it's better to have a little bit more than a little bit less. If you find yourself making a character and you don't really have in mind where they came from, you don't really have in mind their relations with their family, with their community, with the world around them, you might have a little bit of a problem because there's just not going to be anywhere to start with your character. Your dungeon master might have a lot of issues trying to come up with something special just for your character to have happen. You might get in a situation where it's just they don't really have a connection to the world around them, so why should they do anything in the world at all? And so it's always worth it to put just a little bit more in than to pull back just that little bit more. So that's that whole balancing act. And then things to think about. The internet is always your friend when it comes to character creation. There are so many ways to get inspired. This, for example, I found in 30 seconds online, and they are fantastic questions. There's so many things that you can ask yourself about your character that just provide that much more detail. My personal favorite is number 5, on an average day, what can be found in your character's pockets? You might not ever think to yourself, what would my character actually have? But if someone asks it to you, hey. So always feel free to use the resources around you. You don't just have to make a character in isolation. That's not very much fun. So moving on from like backstory stuff. What do you want? What are your motivations in the world? Why are you actually going and doing things and not just sitting in your little ramshackle cabin and waiting for the days to pass? Your character's motivations are almost more important than their backstory. Every time.
I would argue they are more important. That's from my camp over here.
I'll take that. But yeah, you always have to ask yourself, why are you actually moving through the world? Is there some great threat in your life that you're trying to escape? Or is there something that you've always wanted so desperately that you're willing to go out and do anything to go and get it? Or even, in our case of Dear Frodo over here, were you forced to go and do something, honestly, kind of against your will? And you just have the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's okay, too. That's a fantastic reason for your character to start moving through the world.
Who's ever felt that way? That you were forced to do something you didn't want to do and the weight of the world's on you? I'm glad we recognize it.
And as much as your character's wants and their goals are important, also keep in mind what your character doesn't want to have happen. That can give you as much inspiration as anything. Does your character want to protect someone and prevent some sort of calamity from befalling their home? Or do they quite simply just hate caves? That's okay too. All right, so next up we've got ideals and alignments. So there's been a lot of conversation recently about alignments and whether or not they're actually worth anything. I would argue more towards yes as a general guideline. Don't let yourself get fenced in by them. It's a good thing to look at generally, you know. My character likes to follow the law and he is relatively good in his intentions. Great. But you don't have to fit inside the tiny little box inside the bigger box.
In fact, some of the coolest moments are when you go against type, as long as you don't do it too often, because then it dulls that. But like a big moment where this like law-abiding sort of like hero character does something sort of like, I don't know, assassinate someone, like that would be out of character, and that would be like really cool if it happened in a big moment. There are times when you can go against type and it improves the story.
That's why we playing the game was good. This platform, we were to do big monsters. The Frankenstein chapter was defending the scented flesh golem from a mob. And I was like, okay, I don't want to, like, you know, hold the courthouse door. But if they were throwing it like, look at that. It's every one of them. I'm leaving you, okay, fine, just see what's happening. Critical hit, 30 hit points. One just like ready to tell her, totally different. It was like, oh.
And that's fantastic. And I know exactly what game you're talking about. Carrying Crown Book 2.
I was about to ask. I was like, hold up.
I'm running that one.
With
nice.
me.
Great. Yeah.
So that was a, oh crap, I totally just killed the building.
Didn't we kill him too?
I think you all did, but you have a
You
lot
were
less
in the game,
compunctions.
so you definitely killed one.
Our parties tend towards the not necessarily lawful good side. It's fun. Yeah.
Is it a mistake? It sounds like you did something really cool.
And that's why our parties don't trend towards lawful good. And considering how your character might react to something like that, you accidentally kill a commoner in a mob. That's fantastic from like a character development standpoint. Maybe not from, you know, the character's eyes, but think about that. What would your character do if they were put in a really uncomfortable situation and they had to make a difficult choice? That's fantastic.
I remember what we did now.
Didn't you? Wait, you
What did you
bumsy your
do?
way out.
Wait, was it when the mob was attacking the courthouse?
Yes.
No, remember we threw a smoke screen down so no one could see that we killed him.
Oh.
Clever.
I must have repressed it. It was an interesting time. And then along with that, just always consider, like, what does your character, like, from when they were a child, what have they held themselves towards? What do they want to be? It's okay if they want to be, you know, the next mob boss. That's great. That is their ideal. That's what they want. It doesn't have to be, like, you know, ideal, you know, the pinnacle of civilization. It can be just what they want to strive towards, personally. And then the big thing. What you play with your character does not necessarily reflect who you are in real life. It's okay to play a character who likes to murder people. That doesn't mean you like to murder people.
It doesn't necessarily mean you don't like to. I don't know you that
That's
well.
true.
But
I would like to think you're not going to kill me.
It's a hopeful thought, but
but your character has no bearing on that.
true. So, yeah, feel free. Explore the bounds of what you're comfortable with personally. It's fine. And then, I like this one. When you're creating a character, sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed with everything that we just talked about, all of your ideals, all of your motivations, everything like that. Sometimes it's easy to just boil it back down into something simple. And I like to call it the early 2000s roleplay profiles.
Yeah,
If
back when you were
ever-
making Sonic OCs.
Oh, hey. If you ever roleplayed on a web forum back in the early 2000s, you probably made one of these. You might have made one in time since. As I found out, the Final Fantasy XIV role-playing community actually uses these still. It's a really easy way to communicate all of your information to someone else without your 19-page backstory boring someone to tears. So it's just all of your basics. You can do your name, age, height, build. You can get down into likes and dislikes. Anything.
And if you're having a hard time with that, if you Google like D20 Pathfinder thingy, there are lots of places that have a chart that you roll a dice and it just tells you what it is. And I use it all the time.
I was going to get to that. Thank you very much. But things like that are fantastic resources. All right. And then remember, one more time, your character is yours. They can feel whatever you want them to feel. They can act however you want them to act. There are no right or wrong answers in creating your own character. They can be who they want to be, and that is perfectly fine. Now, bringing it back around, specifically more towards Dungeons and Dragons, bringing it towards Pathfinder, anything like that. How are your class and race going to fit into it? There's really two big ways you can do it. The first one, you can decide your class and your race first. I use this one a lot. I don't like it as much. But if you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, I think maybe this time I want something different. I want a half-orc barbarian, which isn't what I usually play. You can go from there and say, okay, well, what would a half-orc experience in this world? What's their childhood looking like? What is their adulthood looking like? Why are they on their journey? How did they get there? So there's that method. There's also creating your class and race last. I like this one more, but I find it's a little harder to pull off in actuality. So you think about things like, I've got this idea for this character, and he started out as a carpenter's apprentice, and so he's really good with like an axe and things like that. And something happened to him, and now he's just got his axe in hand, and he goes out into the world and tries to make it right. Well, I might want to do a class that has a more martial bent. Maybe if he's a carpenter's apprentice, maybe he's a larger race. Maybe he's that half-orc. Hey, barbarians can use axes. Maybe we'll do a half-orc barbarian. That could be fun. So it really is just a matter of personal preference. Are you going to be doing your class and race first, or are you going to be doing it last?
For a character that I created for a game we haven't started yet, but we basically had our session 0. Mm-hmm. I literally, I've never played Pathfinder, so this will be my first time playing it. So I was like, I don't know what I want to be at all. But then a phrase came into my head, and it was rat with a gun. And so I decided to be a gunslinger rat folk, just because that sounds awesome to me. Just a rat with a big old gun. That sounds great. So we can also be as simple as that. Like, oh, that sounds fun. I don't care about the min-max. That just seems like a cool time to me.
That's what I did too for that campaign. It's taking place in like alternate history during or after World War II, somewhere around then, right?
Shortly after.
Shortly after. So I was like, okay, what was happening in the world then? Vaudeville. But also, what would be interesting? I was like, oh, a Dampier might be fun to play. Holy cow, I could be Renesmee in vaudeville.
Twilight reference for those of you who don't get it. It's okay. But yeah. So speaking of class and race, we just throw this in here for fun every time we run this. Things like this are fantastic. You've probably seen them before. If you have no ideas, really, you're told, oh, hey, we kind of want to run a thing. And you're like, okay, I'm kind of tapped out for characters right now. Again, always look online. The internet can help you every step of the way. If you find something like this, you can just kind of go step by step. Oh, I think I kind of want to do, what's this one say? I think I want to do a character that hits them where it hurts physically. Okay, so we're probably going more martial, and you just follow it along. And that's a really easy way to make a character. You can fill in all your backstory later. You can fill in why they actually want to do what they're doing. You can do all that at another time. Sometimes it's great to just sit back, relax, and let's see, what are we going to be this time?
If you use that, don't show that to your loved ones, because you'll look like a crazy person.
It's true. It is very true. And then, again, don't build your characters in an isolation chamber. It's so much more fun if you use the people around you in the internet. There are so many books out there with regards to character creation and providing information for what world your character is going to be in. So if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, use your player handbook. There's a lot of little hidden tidbits in there that can really like make you go, oh, well, that's cool. Maybe my character has something to do with this. Maybe my character does have something to do with this cult. Fancy. Campaign-specific player guides. If you're using a pre-made campaign, a lot of those come with a player-specific guide, not for the dungeon master, specifically just for the players. And it can really give you like little tiny details that you wouldn't otherwise know about. Third-party books. I have this one somewhere. It's in a box somewhere. We moved recently. I haven't found it yet. Story of my life. Okay, backstory. The things like this are really great about helping you come up with little ideas that you might not otherwise have thought of.
Also, like, and probably talk to your DM or DM about this first, but if you just want to be like Taco from the Adventure Zone or whatever, you could just be Taco from the Adventure Zone. Like, no one's going to stop you. It's not like you're going to get sued by the McElroy brothers or something. Like, play what is fun to you. You know, you can change his name to like some other Mexican-based food, and there you go. You're done. You're ready to go.
And if you ever try to do that, feel free to look it up on YouTube because there are many channels that just do that.
Yeah.
They build characters in certain systems on your behalf, and you could just copy paste.
Mm-hmm. Remember, the whole reason why we're doing this is because we're trying to have fun. Probably. Hopefully. I hope you're trying to have fun when making a character for whatever purpose. Hopefully. But yeah, you can also, like I've been saying, the internet. Lodestar was talking about the D20PF SRD, which is a mouthful, but websites like it's like a Wikipedia for all of the Pathfinder information. Archives of Nethys. I know, what's the Dungeons and Dragons one? D&D Beyond. There's so much information on there, and there's whole communities around each of them, forums where you can just go and you can ask a question. I don't know. Where would an elf actually live in this world? Things like that. And then even going further, writing prompts. Writing prompts are fantastic. Like, writing prompts on Tumblr, I love them. Not much else, but writing prompts. Quizzes, flowcharts like the thing that we had up just a minute ago. And then, again, always ask the people around you in your party who's your DM or GM is going to be. Ask them for ideas. If they've got something in mind, I was going to play a character who, I guess kind of like Ariel, lost his voice because of a magical effect, and now he's functionally mute. And the other players around me were like, well, I can take this spell that gives me telekinesis, and so that we can still communicate in some way. And it kind of became a party thing. Well, how can we still communicate with this character when he has something to share? And so group things like that are always fantastic, and you're never going to know about them if you don't go out and ask your party.
That's part of the time where our luck actually worked, because every time we rolled to interpret what each other was saying, we all rolled nat 20s. And so we just were like, okay, well, at this rate, why re-roll? We're just going to keep going. You guys perfectly understand each other. But it wasn't all of us. It was like this weird connection, like you had to see it to translate it to you.
Yeah, it was the character
Like a
who was
game of
mute
telephone.
could communicate to the character who couldn't speak to the others. But there was another character who could read their mind and share it with the fourth party member. It was like a chain of communication. It was great. A complicated game of telephone, but it worked.
It was very fun, actually.
It really
I
was.
can imagine it being very funny if you got it wrong too. If you like rolled poorly or misinterpreted.
Got this one character just slamming
that's
their
a
head
good
into a
sense
wall.
of tension there.
Something else that's also good about character creation, and just like a good like D&D tabletop life tip. Who here has ever had problems making schedules for everyone to meet up for the game? Well, we used to have that problem. And then we realized, hold on. We don't need to find other players anymore. We're just going to each make 2 characters. So we have a party of 4. And that way we only have to adjust 3 people's schedules rather than 5. And then you get to make more people.
And it's actually really fun because you've kind of got that inside knowledge. Well, maybe I can you've kind of got to try to distance yourself from that inside knowledge, but it makes it fun.
Especially if you like making characters, because then it's like, well, now I don't have to choose this or that. It's both.
All right. And actually with that, we have run through all the stuff that we've got. So reframe, we're around cons all the time when they're happening, if they're happening. Feel free, if you're interested in anything that we talked about today or anything maybe coming up, feel free to contact us through here. Lodestar and I both have an internet presence. I don't think Spudnik.
No, I don't really.
It's okay. We all work together.
You can just find me behind dumpsters. Usually, that's generally the place. Yeah.
Yeah, good place.
At a hockey game.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
And then affiliates again.
Hey, the Shape of a Star podcast where everyone has a story. We just need to shape it so that we're the star or something like that.
I do have a fake Patreon. You can give me money. I won't give you anything. I made it for my friends to mess with them. Called Nick's Daily Life Advice Videos. Not daily, by the way. And don't do it because I will not give you anything. All right. And that's on the camera. So that's proof. But yeah, one of the tiers is to pay off my my student loans. So, if you're rolling in it, go ahead and do that. Nick's Daily Life Advice Videos.
Does anyone have any questions? Or just like conundrums of, yeah.
I'm curious if you have any advice on, as a DM, limiting character creation options for players, like if there's something setting specific, or if the party wants to play a lot of line players and one new character might derail that. How do you give advice for those scenarios like that? How to encourage players to like follow your mold a little bit? I don't want to, DM, I don't want to merge their creativity or autonomous player, but sometimes it might be something unwanted.
Okay, this is such a sight question.
Yeah.
This is him.
So, because I'm the one that ends up being this character all the time, and we somehow make it work.
It's true.
Talk to the person and ask them, why is the character, like, what is the fundamental reason of them doing it? In psychology, there's this whole theory about all human emotion is basically, if you break it down to the bare core, it's like the same six. So all you got to do is figure out what the deep, deep, deep reason, like, why is your character doing this? And it may take a while, like a rapid fire, like back, forth, back, forth. And once they figure it out, all you got to do is find a way to satisfy it without it in a different plot way that's not going to derail the whole evil. Like, they're doing it because they're upset. Okay, hey, we'll address that in a like quick little thing before we jump into that thing. Or, yeah, just if you really psychoanalyze or make the player do it. It's their character.
Also, one of the things that I would do is give that player opportunities to get that part of their character out in lower stakes scenarios. So, like, I don't know, if it's a character who's just like being a murder hobo, give them the opportunity to like kill a bunch of things that deserve to be killed because they're going to get that out of their system then. And then you can present them with like a character that they, like a side character that they really like. Also, like finding things that they, I mean, this is only specific to this problem, but finding things that they want to keep around, finding characters that they want to keep around. Like give them a little pet or something. Give them something to have some empathy towards. Because usually the problem is that they just want to murder everything. So if you give them like a little, like, oh, here's a little dog. It's going to be real hard for them to try to like kill that little dog.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
And even then, if you're having issues giving them something they're empathetic towards, sometimes giving them something useful is just as good. We've got in our Carrion Crown campaign, we have one character who is unabashedly, unashamedly evil. The rest of the party is kind of morally ambiguous, so it pretty much quickly slid. And that's okay. They're having fun with it. And
we're saving the world still.
The reason why that character is still with the party is because the party is useful towards him. It helps him accomplish his goals. And so he might do the more blatantly evil things, maybe a little bit more out of the limelight in a more... We separated it out with one of the characters who was morally ambiguous, paired it with him, and they shoved a nobleman into a separate dimension, closed the door behind him, and just kind of, see you later. It was great. Great way to commit an assassination.
And also, and this is such a boring fucking answer, so I'm sorry, but like 99% of the time, the solution to most problems is to like go talk to your friend. Like just talk to them outside of a session and just be like, hey, like the other players are having trouble with like this. Is there some way we can work this out? And there are times when also like maybe you can't. Maybe that person just doesn't want to play in the campaign that you've set up, and that's also okay. You know, people have different things. That's why session 0, like we were talking about, is so important. But like theoretically, this is your friend, so hopefully you can talk to them. And if you can't, then like, all right, then they're also not a very good friend. So now you've learned something good about, you know, so I know it's a boring answer, but
you could also just raise the stakes of what you're trying to get them to do. Okay, just as simple, like, help this town quest. No, if you don't help the town, the world's going to end. Do it.
And then you won't accomplish your evil goal.
yeah, or making it personal to that character. Like this person from your backstory is the reason that this town is suffering. Don't you want to end them? You know, that's always an easy solution too.
Yeah, because the way that we justified like that character's super evilness and the morally ambiguous ones is, okay, we're just going to be super selfish, and our selfishness is going to help us save the world. And we like this person because he is very helpful in a fight. So now look, we're all just being selfish and working as a cool team.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Hopefully one of those answers works for you. The list of questions.
Oh, by the way, that chart was basically saying we have another panel tomorrow.
Yeah. Same time, same place.
Same room.
Yeah, we'll be talking more about what is it?
It's
Use
called
of-
Bards Among Us, and it's about integrating music into RPGs and all the sensory integration that it can bring and all the other cool things too. It's more of like a talk panel than like a presentation. And I came up with a bunch of cool questions for these two and a couple other people. And yeah, we're just going to like talk shop, and we're using our musical world expertise, and probably half the questions will relate to the audience too. So very, very like this. What is it called? Audience participatory. And we would,
Socratic, I think.
oh God,
Right?
what? I don't know.
Socratic. That's the Socratic. Anyway, continue.
I don't know. You're the philosophical or one.
Political science is not philosophy.
It kind of is a philosophy to me.
in your heart.
This is why he hates me.
Yep, it's true. Yes.
Do you have any advice in situations where one player wants to have a very main character as a backstory? I'm on a quest for this royal kingdom that's far away, and I'm going to get great fame for it. But like, you're on this land, how do you balance those views in a meaningful way? You're doing this personal account, but people want to have these like really high, noble, and overarching missions. You can relate that to more mundane.
Princess Aurora. We had one of those. Twice. Same. Yeah. It was the same character with a different name.
Yeah. Also, the Little Mermaid character I literally said earlier is that person. But the way I justify it to myself, which might be helpful to help with whoever you're working with and playing with, every little step towards notoriety is another step towards being a grand main character.
Mm-hmm.
Think of JRPGs. You got to save the cat before you kill God. Yeah. So
For this like particular problem, are you like a DM?
We're going to make characters for a game down the road. And
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I mean, one of the things to do is, again, like just like talk to that particular person, and maybe see if they want to like make it a little bit smaller stakes if everyone else is having a smaller stakes thing. One of the big problems with like any type of role playing is everyone wants to be the main character, which is just, in fact, that's not even like a role playing problem. That's just like a life problem.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks of the main character. So obviously, again, the boring fucking answer is to like talk to them. But if like their heart is set on it and you really want to play with this person, I think that you just have to, it's kind of like, You basically just have to incorporate their little thing into the main quest. The DM, you unfortunately would have to find a way to connect it. I mean, if their heart's set on it and you really want to play with them, then it has to happen, right? So finding a way to connect that character's personal want to either other characters' wants, which is always the best way to do it, or to like the main overall villain is always a good way. What did you guys do?
So
Oh wait, this is for her. Right?
in that situation, yeah.
Oh God.
What did we end up
What
doing?
did we do?
That was a long time ago.
Sorry.
So let
I
me,
think-
while you think, let me describe the character. So this was D&D 4th edition.
Yeah.
A Deva Invoker, who was the princess of her own kingdom. This was a total homebrew campaign. And she, well, so her personality type would be more aligned with chaotic evil, but she justified it because she's like, I'm the princess, I make the law. So everything that I say is lawful. And I am good because the law says so. So that's how she justified it. This is very early in our days before we really
was-
understood it.
It was a lot of rhetoric to get to that point, but that's where it ended up. What we kind of just, I think what our DM at the time ended up doing was to drive everybody in the story to that location and give us a reason to be with that character instead of that character going on her own and becoming the main character in, you know, a standalone single player RPG. Was like the great threat that we faced in that campaign was there. And so if we wanted to protect what we had dear to us or continue to make money by, you know, being a merchant and not having the world end, you know, at our feet, was we had to go there alongside. But once we were there, our motivations were our own. We didn't necessarily have to help her get back into her position of power, but
Another couple things that you could do. Have a person in said mundane town or someone in the town know of things that could help the main quest, but this person only visits like once every, 4 months? Like, you remember back in the olden days when like the random priest or pastor that could marry someone only visited town like once every few months? So that way, just stay with town. They'll be here eventually. It's been a few months. It could be tomorrow. It could be 3 weeks. Ha 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 ha. But meanwhile, while you're here, can you do this for us? You could do stuff like that. You could have letters from the other kingdom be like, hey, you're stationed here now for a little bit. Wait till further orders.
And I was just thinking, there is like, it is also okay for a character to fail at a thing. If they like really want to get this, I don't know, this artifact on like another island or something, it is possible for them to like, you know what, it turns out that the island maybe the island doesn't exist, but the artifact does. Maybe you don't want to like undercut someone's backstory, but there are ways. You also want to surprise them, right? So you can still give them that thing they're working towards, but fit more closely into your setting. It's okay for a character to like come up with challenges that they can't, just like in real life, like you can't solve everything. Like it turns out there's some problem that they need to solve first before they can move on to that quest.
You had your hand up earlier. Did you have something to add?
Hopefully that helped you. I'm sorry if it didn't.
Everyone's table is responsible for everyone else's happiness. So all the players who have very big main characters in front of the on them. They're interesting. There's probably more ways to go to language. Who runs a part of the beginning who have a time. Especially with their skills, the skill of the other characters, they're all very employees for this thing. So they're in character, but you have to really long because the test under is not. Your thing, the way you get better to is to get better. You're going to the better the boss is, and then you make that main story as you do everything else with the process. The boss story is the boss story. I want to help before you go with it.
that's really good.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Also making it the player's responsibility to convince the other players that this is something they want. I mean, it could lead to some tension, but it also could lead to like a really interesting dynamic between the characters. There's always that option.
Plus, you could always find a reason to drag them back to that town. Oh my God, can you not?
That's what we named the town, was
Can you not? Because we were so sick of the town. But we kept having to go to Can You Not like 4 times across the campaign. And Can You Not was like at the northeast corner. We had to go to some gnome island, back to Can You Not, down to Princess Aurora's kingdom on the southern coast, back to Can You Not. Like, we just kept having to go to this Can You Not place. So you could always do that too. Just circle back later.
And then also something, if your players are interested in something really far at the end, just escalating stakes. They can try to go there and complete their, main character manifest destiny. But once they get too far out of town, suddenly, slowly yet surely, the stakes increase. And suddenly you're facing, a pack of, I don't know, particularly deadly wolves as a level 1 character. And you kind of get repelled back, and you have to work with the party for that growth. Yep. So,
yeah,
things to think about.
Anyone else have any questions or suggestions for each other? Because everyone's actually been really good.
Or any just general comments about how good I am would be really good for my self-esteem, guys.
And it's okay if there's not. But thank you all so much for coming out. That was all we had. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are the
So,
best.
Thanks.
Also, shout out to my hair twin in the back.